the video game character. My daughter got it for me, and it's
I love it.
I love it.
I love it. Welcome to another episode of The Profitable Creative, the only place on the interwebs where you will learn how to turn your passion into profit. I am your host, Christian Brim. Joining me today, Kevin Rapp. I didn't ask you before the show, is there a company you're associated with
Sure.
besides Kevin?
Yeah. The name of my business is called Ultra Friends. I'm the chief
Okay,
creative officer. We're a creative problem solving company.
I love that. Ultimate Friends, right?
Ultra Friends.
Ultra Friends. Okay, so how'd you come up with that name?
Okay, so my business partner is a former design director at Twitter. His name's Travis McCleary, and he and I are ultra level friends. And we were playing the game Pokemon Go,
Yes.
and when you share gifts with people, you enhance your friendship status. And we reached the level of ultra friends. That's
I
the
love it.
level of friendship status that we achieved in Pokemon Go. And we thought that was just a hilarious phrase to be given. And from there, we were just like, yeah, that's it. That's the name of the studio.
Yeah, who could say you're not ultra friends? I mean, how do you
No
even
one
define
can.
that? Exactly.
And we kind of expand that to include the contractors that we work with, the clients that we work with. Everybody's an ultra friend.
I love it. So at Ultra Friends, I heard you recently speak at the Onward Summit, and I found your presentation fascinating. I
Thank you.
I am curious. I think I know, but tell me exactly what you do at Ultra
Sure.
Friends.
Sure. So it's hard for me to say, this is our lane, this is our niche, because we do everything from branding to web design to video content creation to, overall creative marketing strategy for brands. So we're kind of all over the map. And so that's why I kind of describe us as creative problem solvers. We
Hmm.
are not the type of company that you contract when you say, hey, we have this very specific brief. We just need somebody to come in here and make it look pretty. We are the type of company that you contract when you have a business problem that needs solved and you need creative experts that can help you assess the type of creative solutions that are going to solve those bigger business problems.
Yeah, because that was my follow-up question: is what problem do you solve? And it sounds like the creative ones. That's
Yeah,
the ones that need the creative juice.
100%. And that can be everything from we're a B2B company and we need to increase our visibility so that we can get bigger sales with bigger brands. We need to pitch bigger. We need to increase our customer base. We need to elevate our brand awareness. We need to help recruit the top talent. There's all sorts of really big business problems that we are helping brands solve. And I think by focusing on not just what is the creative, what is the concept, we're really diagnosing the problems that these
Hmm.
businesses have and how creative can be a huge lever that they can pull in order to solve some of the biggest problems in the business.
You're a physician.
Yes, that's a great way to put it, is that we, you know, you can take somebody and just say, you can go into a doctor's office and say, "Hey, I need this exact medicine for this exact the problem, right? That I'm facing." But
Right.
a good doctor isn't just going to go, "Okay, well, you asked for this pill, so here it is." A good doctor
Right.
is going to say, "Well, let's really get to the root of the problem here. What are your symptoms?
Right.
What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And what would be a healthier lifestyle for you? And then let me actually diagnose what the real problem is, and
Right.
then I can come up with the right treatment to get you to a healthier lifestyle."
And that's interesting. I've said this on the show a couple of times, but I think that professionals in general. So I don't think just those in the creative spaces like marketing, but accountants, lawyers, I don't know about engineers. I don't talk to many engineers. Um, they treat the symptoms.
Yes.
They don't necessarily find the underlying cause.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess that's a decent business model because it's recurring. Because if you don't
There
ever
are
solve the
always
problem,
symptoms.
right, there's always symptoms, right? So tell us the story about how you came to Ultra Friends. Like
Yeah,
what
sure.
happened before that?
Yeah, so my background is in video production. I started as a video editor and animator many, many moons ago, and worked my way up through the studio pipeline. So started at smaller studios and then got to work on bigger studios and work with bigger brands and got into a directorial position. And then I had this really wild opportunity to go work for a startup. There was a company called Root Insurance that at the time was a Series B, 100-person little startup that was looking for somebody to run their video department. And I had worked with them before. They were a client of ours. And I really liked the product. I really liked what they were doing and figured I really want a little bit more strategic opportunity to see behind the curtain rather than just seeing what the briefs are and then
Right,
making the video and then it goes into the void and I have no idea what happens. I'd
right.
love to get more insight into the process and see what happens. And so this just felt like the right opportunity. And so I spent 4 years there, and in that time we went from a little 100-person startup to an 1,800-person public company, which was just
That
an
was an interesting
incredible
journey.
yeah, a an interesting hair on fire journey a lot of the time,
Yes,
but it was something that was incredibly valuable to
sure.
really not just get to put my creative chops into practice, because that's something that it feels like in the creative industry when you're on the agency or studio side is, I am here to take orders and execute this to the best of my ability, right? To
Right,
bring my perspective to this that is going to execute this prompt
yes,
as uh, masterfully and as ambitiously as I possibly can with the level of technical excellence that I hope to achieve. But it's rare to really feel like I am attacking the real problem. And it's rare to get a sense of understanding of how well it performed. Really, like
yes,
a lot of the times the best metric that I had for the success of a project was if the client came back, right? So we would never go, oh yeah, here's the data. We increased our brand awareness by 15%, which is what we were going for 10. And you gave us 15. So we'd love to work with you again. We'd never get that data. It was just like, yeah, we liked working with you. So we're going to work with you again. And I wanted something deeper. I
right,
wanted to really understand the impact of what I do and get better at being able to apply my skills.
right.
And this was an incredible opportunity to do that. I really got to see the data behind the content I was creating. I got to see the true business impact of what I was doing. And I got to really see just how valuable creative truly is. Because
Yes,
I really don't think that company grows the way it grew without the creative team helping them figure out how to tell their story.
yes,
We were a car insurance company, right?
right.
And
Hmm.
car insurance is one of the most heavily advertised industries in the world. There are billions spent on advertising in the car insurance space. I mean, literally try and watch a commercial break without seeing at least one car insurance advertisement. I think you'll have a hard time doing it.
Yeah, and
And
it seems like all of them are about how cheap they are, and
100%.
yeah, I'm like, Yeah. As a business model, I'm sitting there going, well, you realize that if you're the cheapest, that means all you're going to do is fight me on your claim. That's the
Exactly.
business model, right? So I'm like,
Exactly.
and you talk about red water marketing and red water business model. Not that
Yep.
that should surprise us because insurance is a very old, very conservative industry.
Very much so.
Uh, but it's like those are the people that could absolutely use the creative juice because no one else is doing it.
And not only that, but it's a product no one wants.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like it's not a thing that you desire to buy, it's a bill. Right?
Yes.
It's an expense. It is something that I am legally required to have in order to drive in the state of Ohio. Right?
Right.
It's not something that is desirable. And so a
No.
lot of the times, the things that you can advertise on are price,
Mm-hmm.
or you can advertise on brand, and that
Right.
typically is just like humor, right? Like
Right.
I'm going to put a rejected SNL sketch up on the TV, and you could swap out the logos at the end, and it doesn't, you really don't know the difference between who's
Right.
what,
Right.
because they're trying to make this thing that is really kind of dull and an abstract concept that no one actually wants desirable.
So how did you approach it at Root?
So the way we approached it is we really had a differentiated product in the market, which is very difficult, and one of the hardest parts of building a differentiated brand is having something that is unique in the market. So
Mm-hmm.
Root was a car insurance company that developed a smartphone app that measured driving behavior. So the app, through the sensors in your smartphone, could measure how hard you brake. It could measure how often you're picking up your phone while you're driving, and so it can measure the behavior that is most likely to cause car accidents. And guess what? That tells you more about how likely you're to cause an accident than your credit score, which is
Right.
how car insurance is already currently priced. It is mostly entirely based on demographics, right?
Right.
And so they made driving behavior the number one factor in your pricing model.
Yeah,
And
I want to pause there and say that
yeah,
I think that the credit score, there is no correlation to your driving. It is simply if you have a higher credit score, you're a uh, more profitable customer for them. That I mean, so it
bingo.
yeah, it was nothing around the risk element. It was
Yep.
it was really around the profitability. So I'm sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Elements like zip code and credit score do not tell us anything about your driving ability. They tell us how poor you are or how rich you
Right.
are. That is
Right.
what they tell you. And so those factors being utilized tend to penalize people from marginalized communities.
Right.
It To put it very reductively, car insurance can be a tax on the poor.
Yes.
And so building this product that was designed to benefit people from marginalized communities, that was designed to provide a fairer experience in the car insurance industry, gave us something really powerful to build a brand around. It
Hmm.
gave us this opportunity to really say something meaningful in a space that is often very devoid of meaning. Um, so we had an opportunity to be disruptive with the way we utilize brand. So I when you ask how did we come to the space, we really said we want to have a message that feels very different and a brand that feels very different than any other advertiser you'd see in the car insurance industry.
So let's pivot and discuss how you started Ultra Friends. What
Sure.
led to
Yeah.
that?
So the experience of working at Root taught me so much. It really gave me a completely different perspective than what I had about the value of creative work, since I started my career. Right, in my opinion, prior to joining that company, the craft was the value of what I did, right? My
Mhm.
creative perspective, my ability to channel a brief into something that was beautiful and eye-catching and creatively ambitious was what I had to offer. And that was the thing that was unique about me. But as I got to Root and as I worked through that experience of really seeing, oh no, um, I can help triple a policy count for a company. I can help build a brand and tell their story in a way that captures the public's imagination, that influences them to make behavior change.
Yes.
That that is magic. Like that
Yeah.
is something that is incredibly powerful, and it taught me that what we do is so much more valuable than I have ever given it credit for.
Yeah,
And
I think what you're saying right there is the money shot.
yeah,
This is um, true for all professional services, but creatives
absolutely.
specifically is they get caught up in the skill
Yep.
without understanding the impact.
Yes.
And like I'll take it over to our industry, accounting, another highly sexy and interesting industry, um, not unlike insurance.
Yeah.
Everybody loves to pay for accounting, right?
Th-
um,
it's their favorite.
it's their favorite. It's right up there with going to the dentist.
Yeah.
um, the uh, you can be incredibly good at your skill, debits and credits and reconciling and knowing your tax code and all this other stuff, but really have no clue what impact it has on the business owner, the client, right? and
Absolutely.
and until you understand the impact that you can have, and probably more importantly, the impact that the business is looking for, like what problem
Yes.
are they looking to have solved, you really can't extract great value. You
No.
become a commodity, just like insurance, right? And it's just like, what's the cheapest? I'll buy that.
Exactly.
And unfortunately with accountants, because they're analytical and that's the way they think, that it's often hard for them to move into that space of um, really understanding, getting to know the customer and understanding what business problem they're trying to solve. But it translates across all these industries, and I think the entrepreneurs in these professional services uh, really have to get out of that skill mode. They got to
Yes.
get out of that space.
To bring that back to a place of creative, so many websites of creative studios or freelancers often sound the same, right? You
Mm,
can go to a lot of different websites and you'll see we're award winning storytellers that are
right,
passionate about our craft, right? Like
right,
we could probably write the agency bio like
right,
right here, and you'd see it in 100 different studios that
right.
almost word for word the same language. But storytelling isn't inherently valuable,
No,
right? It's not. But we're so convinced that it is because it's the thing that we care about. It's the thing that it's what got us into the industry in the first place because we want to tell stories. But storytelling is valuable. You just have to figure out how it connects to value. Like, for example, do you understand the unique storytelling mechanisms that are required for social media in order to stop the scroll and keep people's attention past the skip ad button? Because that is valuable.
yes, and,
The
and I'd even say, what story are you telling, right?
correct.
Because that is it a story somebody wants to read?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Knowing the right story to tell and
Hmm.
knowing the right levers to pull in that story in order to alter the behavior of
Yes.
your audience, that is value. That is something that leads to tangible business impact. And I think so many of us get hung up on our contribution that we don't follow the thread of how that contribution leads to tangible value. And that is the line that you need to be able to draw in order to be able to properly communicate who you are and what you do.
Hmm. Yes. Okay. So I didn't quite get the answer. Well, I think I
No.
cut you off. So go ahead and finish the story.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest realization of my career is
Hmm.
understanding the value of what I did. And
Hmm.
for a while, my thinking was, wow, I've built a really great department inside an insurance company, right? I built
Hmm.
a video department from the ground up. And then eventually I started to measure the impact of what I did. And I started looking at the systems that I'd built in the company. I'd started to look at, how I'd built inefficiencies, and I started to like assign dollar values to what I did.
Hmm.
And after doing some math, I came to the realization that in cost savings, I was saving the company $5 million a year in production costs just by counting like how I was building things. And then I would look at the back end and go, oh, we're also creating hundreds of millions of dollars in value. And so
Right.
I started to realize I didn't just make a really great department. I built a business model
Yes, you
for
did.
how creative can impact companies. And
Yes, you did.
there are a lot of other companies like this out here. And so I started to market myself and what I was doing. And I didn't know at first what that was going to look like. It may have been consulting. It may have been eventually I'll get another full time gig. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I started to market the impact of what I was doing and how I think about the work a little differently. And people just started coming to me and started to ask me to help them and said like, hey, we want what you did there for us.
Hmm.
And from there it just kind of continued to scale. It was just this me posting on LinkedIn every once in a while that eventually snowballed into building an agency
Now, how long ago was this that you started Ultra Friends?
2.5 years ago.
Okay. And did you start out at the outset with a partner or?
No, it was just me at first because I kind of quit my job without a plan. And I just started posting on LinkedIn saying, "Okay, I'm going to start figuring out what I'm going to do." And I got my first couple of clients pretty quickly, and that gave me the opportunity to have some space to really investigate what I wanted to do. And I found that I was really enjoying doing my own thing, which is, I mean, I was a lifetime 9 to 5er before that. I had worked full time jobs for 16 years before I did my very first going out on my own. So this was,
Mhm.
as a notoriously very risk averse person, this was something that I was very, very, very nervous about. But
What helped you bridge that gap from employee to, as I like to phrase it, the check signer. I mean, the check casher to the check signer.
I think seeing the response that I got and being able to close a couple of clients even before I left my full time job just gave me that, oh, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
you know, I, I,
Yeah.
I had started to really understand my value when I worked in house and got to really see the impact of what I was doing. And this gave me that validation of like, oh no, you're right. You are you are worth more than you gave yourself credit for. And betting on yourself right now is the right bet to make.
I'm going to put a pin in that statement right there. So finish. How did you end up with a partner, and what
Yeah.
was?
So my business partner is actually the former chief creative officer at Root. He's the guy who hired me in the first
Okay.
place, and he and I just became very, very, very good friends over the time. And he went off and did other things while I was starting to do my own thing. And we always talked about, eventually it'd be great to put the band back together and get the two of us
Okay.
back together working together again. And eventually he got into the right circumstances where it's like the timing is kind of right for me to at least give this a try. And so this was about a year ago that the two of us officially combined forces and changed what was Kevin Rapp Consulting into Ultra Friends.
Do you segregate your responsibilities? Is there a synergy that comes
Yeah,
with what you do?
yeah, there's great collaborative overlap in what we do. My background is more in video production and marketing work, and his background is in UX design. So he's
Hmm.
done a lot of website design and app product design. So he has more of a product background, and we both obviously have a lot of overlap in brand and have both done marketing and product. So there's lots of overlap there, but we have different perspectives that have nice harmony. And so we're able to lead different initiatives, but we offer kind of a well rounded package together.
So I want to go back to the pen. You
Yeah.
said understanding the value that you created gave you the confidence to. I'm
Yes.
paraphrasing.
Yeah.
To go and start your own. I think that a lot of creatives that may be contemplating starting their own businesses, uh, and maybe some that are in business for themselves,
Right.
struggle with that. Like,
Yeah. I,
um, I go back to when I did interviews for my book Profit First for Creatives. I saw this underlying theme that there was this devaluation of
mm,
creativity by the individuals, not like
yes.
externally they were, but I think some of it is external.
I think it's
You,
both.
well, talk about it. Tell me what your thoughts
Yeah.
are on that.
So I think that there are systemic factors that devalue creative. Um, I mean, we see it in the industry all the time. There are so many agencies that pitch for free in order
Mm.
to win business, right?
Get that
And
exposure as you posted on LinkedIn today.
exposure bucks, right?
Yeah.
People are paid in exposure bucks. People pitch in order to win business, and I when I think about those types of pitches, the concept that resonates with an audience and motivates them to make behavior change is the most valuable thing that we have to offer. And when
Yeah.
we pitch for free and offer up the most valuable thing that we have to offer for $0, of course we're devaluing creative.
Yes. And I will say that one, changing human behavior is the single most valuable thing you can do in business.
Absolutely.
I will reiterate that, um, because human behavior is irrational, and
Incredibly irrational.
and understanding that complexity is something that only another human can do. There's no technology
Yep.
that can replace it, right?
That's right.
Because even if you're really good at it, you might only figure it out 50% of the time. I don't know. I pulled that number out of my
It,
ass, but like,
absolutely. Yeah.
right,
Not everything is going to be a win, right?
right,
It's human behavior is really messy. We make decisions emotionally and then rationalize it with logic, right? We
exactly.
that's
That's
how
100%
humans
right.
make decisions.
Right,
And
but then going back to your exposure bucks,
yeah,
it's you know, I'm kind of a I don't know, quasi student of pricing. I just find the concepts fascinating in pricing.
Yeah.
But I can tell you one thing, that if you don't charge, you automatically devalue what you do. I mean,
Automatically.
no one can see value for what they do not pay for. I mean,
Yep.
that's just an axiom. It does not change.
It does not change. And I think when you're setting off the relationship with that as your very first impression, of
Right.
course, they are not going to value you as an equal partner. You are
Right.
setting that relationship off in a way with a very mismatched power dynamic, which is how I think a lot of us get stuck in the trap of being order takers because they don't truly value us as equals.
Which is
And
not the space where you deliver your most value as an order taker and producing
no,
whatever it is that the patient says they want, right? Your
absolutely.
real value is as the physician to say, this is your real problem.
Yes. So that's how I think systemically there are factors that devalue creative. And then I think we as creatives internalize that external devaluation and devalue it ourselves because we are people who build a large portion of our identity from our work because
I
we are passionate about it, because we love it,
oh,
and because it is a huge part of who we are. And so when we tell ourselves that we are worth less in terms of pitching for free, in terms of working for exposure bucks, when we say we are worth X dollar amount, we are telling ourselves, not just as workers, not just as employees, not just as artists, but as people, we are worth less. And that
oh,
trickles in to every aspect of our professional lives and personal lives.
oh, we could do a whole nother episode on that. I, I, no, I think about my daughter is a, what does she call herself? Figurative oil painter.
Mm,
I think that's the correct term.
yeah.
Um, and I had her on the show, and we had this discussion. But I remember she had several years ago a painting that she had posted, and it went viral on TikTok.
Mm,
And at that time, she was selling prints, and she got so overwhelmed with orders. And I was like, what turn it off. Like, if you
yeah.
can't meet the demand, right? But the fascinating thing was, and the salient point here is that she got a lot of negative feedback on TikTok
Mm-hmm.
from what she'd posted as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I said, well, as her father, not as a business advisor, it was, well, if you're going to play in that realm, you're going to get both, right? And you either
Absolutely.
have to absorb all of it or ignore all of it. You
Yep.
can't pick and choose, right?
Yep.
It, so, but it is deeply personal, right? And
Incredibly.
and that's what um I, I I really wish we had time to dive into the personal aspect of it, but I want to stick on the business for now. And
Okay.
as we
But part two. There's always
yes,
part two.
we can have you back on the show. So the the compelling thing I was thinking of is, it's what about I'm just going to throw this idea out here. What about a
Go.
marketing agency to marketing agencies,
I
right?
mean, it's so needed.
Because right, because the thing is, I'm thinking here is that marketers don't even really understand um, what their real value is and how to communicate that to their customers, right,
That's
or
right.
potential customers. What
That's
do you
right.
think of that? Are you going
I
to
think
start a
that
business with me? Shall we start
it has been something that's been on my mind, honestly, because the thing that, I mean, I love what I do. I love helping brands, but the thing that I get really, really fired up about is helping creatives and other business owners unlock things in themselves and recognizes the superpowers that they don't even realize they have. Um, it's it's something that came far too late in my career. Like, I shouldn't have been 20 years in my career before I recognized what my value was. Right? Like, I really should not have been that far along to truly understand why what I do is powerful. But it took me a long time because we're not good at teaching it as an
Yeah.
industry. We're not good at teaching why what we do is impactful. We are great at teaching how to improve the craft. We are great at teaching how to build better pitches. We're great at teaching metrics that don't truly move the needle for the business. Like, they do incrementally, but they're not the real things that help move the business forward. And
Right.
so there is a real desire in me to help creatives understand why they are as important as they are, because every cultural and business foundation is built off of the backs of creative contributions.
100%. And I'll go a step further, that I think one of the structural problems is that um, creatives are different. They think differently. They communicate differently.
Yes.
And a lot of times and I don't want to say non-creatives, because I think everybody's creative,
Everyone's creative. Yeah.
but the people that don't, the rest of the world, we'll just call them that,
Yeah.
have a hard time understanding uh,
Yes.
what it is that you're doing, saying, like, there and so it's easy for that to break down,
There is.
and I'm just thinking of my own experience in my own business, and my own marketing director. Like, I've worked with her for 3 years, and having conversations is structurally difficult because we think and communicate differently. There's not a straight
Very much so.
line in her brain, right?
Right.
My favorite example of that is I asked her at the beginning to give me a spreadsheet, and she gave me a spreadsheet, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is not a spreadsheet, right? And but it just highlighted this fact that we think fundamentally differently,
Yes.
and it's hard for us that aren't in that space to really engage with creatives
It
and
is.
properly utilize them.
Yeah. And that leads to a siloing where creative is kind of offset from the business realities. And that's what leads to marketers saying, okay, we're going to make you this very prescriptive brief of what we want.
Yes.
And then we're going to give it to you creative folks to do your magic thing to make this work. And then the creatives might have a problem where they look at this brief and go, this doesn't make any damn sense. Like, this isn't going to
Right.
give them what they actually want, but they don't have the language to communicate that back. And so there's this breakdown in communication where the creatives just go, okay, we're going to try and make this work. And they're fighting an uphill battle. And maybe it looks really pretty, but it doesn't solve the real problem
Yeah.
because
And
we're not able to have that back and forth.
right. And what we've done in even giving you a brief, conceptually, what we've done is we've already put restraints on you.
100%.
And
Yeah,
as opposed to saying, well, this is the objective we're trying to achieve.
exactly.
What Figure it out. Like, what's excuse me.
Yeah. It's it's something that's really powerful when you have a great dynamic where you have business owners that say, "Hey, we know what we want to achieve. We know what we're trying to accomplish, but we don't exactly know the tactical ways to achieve that. Can you help us?" That's
Yeah.
something that it takes time and trust. But when
Well,
you
yeah.
get into those,
Yeah, because I'm thinking as a business owner, well, if I throw this problem to you, and there's a substantial chance that you're not going to figure it out the first time or the
That's
second
right.
time, right?
That's right.
That's a risky thing. Like
It is.
but the to me the potential solution is worth the risk, because
Yes.
the alternative is just that incremental changes that you're
That's
talking
right.
about, which we know aren't going to really move the needle
That's
much.
right. Exactly. They'll get you those small little incremental wins that you can be like, "Yay, we did this by like 0.5%." And it's like,
Right.
"Cool, that's great." But if you want true innovative change, you absolutely need to trust your partners. And the way that I help facilitate those conversations is that I've stopped using language like concept when I'm telling people what I want, because to me a concept feels really rigid. It feels very
Mm.
like it feels like I'm trying to sell you this idea is going to do magic for you. And
Well,
so
see,
what I present,
concept to me sounds ambiguous. But go ahead. I mean, like
yeah,
that's fascinating that you think it's restrictive, but I would perceive it, if you told me concept, is like that seems nebulous. But go ahead.
so I mean that in the sense of when I am presenting a pitch, or when I was presenting pitches at studios before, we would say, here's concept 1, 2, and 3. Here's why concept 1 is the exact right solution to your problem. Here's why concept 2 could also maybe be the right solution to the problem. And here's also why concept 3 might probably be the right solution to your problem. It's the safe one, right? So to me,
Yeah.
they feel very salesy because that's the
Mm.
structure that we were always pitching them in. And that's why I think they feel rigid. And so I have shifted my language to when I present new ideas to my clients, I pitch hypotheses.
Mm.
I say, this is my hypothesis of what I think is going to perform, and here's why I think it is going to perform. And here are the variables that I'd like to test, and here's what I'd like to learn from the experiment of putting this creative out into the market. That
Yeah.
to me opens up a different kind of conversation where it's no longer, okay, which is your favorite of concepts 1, 2, or 3? It now opens up the possibilities of which do you think is the most reasonable hypothesis to test, and what would you like to start with? That it's no longer 1, 2, or 3 is the right answer. It is,
Yeah.
you know what?
Okay.
1 might be the answer, 2 might be the answer, 3 might be the answer, and I might have up to 10
Right.
hypotheses that I'm going to present you. And it's now, what do you want to try first? And then we have a ton of fertile ground that if that doesn't work, there are other potential solutions to this problem that we have been thinking about and have opportunities to explore.
Well, and essentially what you're talking about, that is, there is divergent thinking as opposed to convergent thinking. And
Mm,
as business owners, um, you don't really want a divergent answer. You want
yeah,
an answer, right? You want
that's right.
everything to come together into one answer.
Yeah, like to say there is only one potential solution to this problem is just unrealistic. There are so many different potential solutions to increase customer acquisitions, right? There's a million different ways to approach that.
Yes.
And so to present a couple of different ways to think about it, and I liken it to, the scientific method, right? That I have a hypothesis, I'd like to test and validate it. Here's our control, here's our variable, so that we can get some real learnings behind it. And so at the end of the day, a lot of the times the most valuable thing isn't just the results. A lot of the time, the what you learn from the test
Yes.
can be the most valuable thing that you get out of investing in creative.
There's a fascinating book. Do I have a copy of it? Um, I recommend you read it. It is called "Greatness Cannot Be Planned,"
Mm,
and I read it. It's written by a computer scientist, and
okay.
it's one of the very first books on AI. I think it's 20 years old,
Mm,
and he walks through why you if your objective is X, that planned approach to achieving X is actually counterproductive
Mhm.
um, from a computer language AI standpoint, and that if you think about all of the great things that have been discovered, they all took a very unpredictable path to get there. So, like the
Mhm.
computer was one of his examples, and he said, "Well, in order for the first computer to be created, there had to be vacuum tubes. But vacuum
Mhm.
tubes weren't created with the intent of creating a computer.
That's right.
They were created to do testing in labs. I don't know why they did
Sure.
them, but and there were several steps along the way that, like, if you said, okay, build me a computer, you would never have gotten there because
Mhm.
you hadn't discovered what you didn't know beforehand, and
Absolutely.
that's what you're describing there.
Yeah, it's absolutely using creative thinking to find the right set of components to build a solution to a business problem, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the things that we did is when I was working in house, I started looking at one of the problems that we had, which was that marketing was always having, or creative was always having to be reactive to marketing. Marketing
Mm.
would make a request, creative would build something from scratch every single time. And so we were putting tremendous amounts of effort into every single piece of creative because we just kind of waited for marketing to tell us what they needed. And so I started looking at this and saying, what if I just started making a bunch of components and just started making a bunch of evergreen assets that they could then say, oh, we have this new initiative. And I could say, great, here are 5 different options. Pull the one off the shelf that you think is best suited for this, right?
Right.
Um, and so I started building all these libraries of assets proactively. So whenever we had downtime, we were starting to add to our inventory. We were
Hmm.
building 3D illustrations, we were building animations, we were building, all sorts of different pieces of content so that we were proactively building a library and an inventory that all of our teams could utilize. And that's how we got to this savings factor because we were proactively
Right.
solving big business problems.
Kevin, we're definitely going to have you back on the show
Okay,
because
okay, we
we
can do
have
that.
we have more that we need to dig into. How do people find you if they want
Yeah.
to learn more about?
Yeah, if
For
the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm usually posting there like every weekday, so you'll see me dropping little nuggets, and also references to the X-Men and any random thing that's on my brain at that particular moment. So that's probably the best place to see more, if you are interested in hearing more of me yammer on.
we'll drop that link in the show notes. Kevin, thank you very much for your experience here and your insights. Listeners, if you like what you heard, please rate the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. I'm not even going to ask you to tell me if you didn't like it, because if you didn't like it, you're on the wrong show. Because this was awesome. Until then, ta ta for now.